Hey everyone, Luke here, and we are back! We are back! It's been quite some time now, guys. I'm way behind on a lot of things, but obviously, as you guys know, I was doing rehearsals for my play, then I had my play myself, and then obviously last week I had the youth group and their final end of year performance, so that's what took up my entire time, guys. I apologise well in advance for this, but don't worry, today we are doing everything. We are doing We Never Learn, Promise Neverland, Dr. Stone videos all lined up back to back, so they're getting done today, or if not, tomorrow definitely, so everything will be up to date. There'll be no interruptions. Now Dr. Stone episode 4 I believe is out today, so I'm going to be doing the first 3 episodes, and then hopefully next week we'll be getting into more into a rhythm of sorts with everything. So next week we will be doing hopefully Promise Neverland chapter 144, and then Dr. Stone episode 4. So that will hopefully be coming next week, guys. I can't guarantee what will happen, but hopefully, fingers crossed, that will happen. So that's what I wanted to say, guys. But for now, let's get right to the final episodes of We Never Learn Season 1. As you guys probably noticed when I said Season 1 is that we've got not only the OVA coming out, but also we've got Season 2 coming out later on this year. So basically, I've got 26 episodes of Dr. Stone. I believe there's 26 episodes. Then obviously we've got We Never Learn, the next series, and then Promise Neverland Series 2 coming out. So yeah, from now right through to like mid next year, there'll hopefully be lots more of these What's the Difference videos. So yeah, guys, that'll keep me busy for quite some time now, and then after that, I don't know, I'll probably do like another series that I've read the manga of, and then obviously find another anime to compare it to. We'll never know. We'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But for now, we just need to focus on the next 3 episodes of We Never Learn. Now, in terms of the first part of episode 11 of We Never Learn, I can actually focus on the manga a bit, because I actually did manage to get my volume 4 of the manga, and that's something that's always bothered me. It's like they wait so long for these volumes to come out one after the other, whereas most volumes come out every 2 months. I feel like We Never Learn is coming out. It's just like taking its time and releasing the manga. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just like a business thing. I don't know, but anyway, we can actually focus on the first section of volume 11 of volume 4. No, episode 11, which is in volume 4. Sorry, guys, if that got a bit confusing there, but yeah, the first point that I want to talk about is a point where after Kiryu Sensei actually finds out that Ashima Senpai and Naoyuki are meeting at her workplace, which is the maid cafe, and the thing that I really took notice at is, in the anime, Kiryu Sensei asks Ashima why she's working there instead of do you work there, which is in the manga, which is right here. You can see it right here, that panel right there, up there. Like, she's like, more importantly, Nami, do you work in this shady place? Rather than that, in the manga, she's like, she asks, why are you working here? Which I feel is much more appropriate question to ask, because it gives off a lot more forcefulness of Kiryu Sensei's character in regards to this, and also it makes it much more apparent when she's when Ashima Senpai is going, la la la, I can't hear you, I've graduated so I don't have to listen to you, la 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 la, sort of like that. But again, like I said, her asking, her asking why she's working there is actually a lot more forceful than do you work there. So I feel like that was a really nice change that they actually made to the anime, to the actual situation itself. Now, of course, there are things that I'm not going to agree with. Like, for example, I had it right here that they really dragged out the fall for like when they're actually arguing over who Yuga's gonna go with. In the manga, it's more like that. There, it's just like more. Kiryu Sensei, let's go. She bumps into the other maid, and she's like, and there's like a crash in the anime. They really dragged it out. It's like, oh no. So like, what should have lasted like about just 2 seconds, just like, they really just dragged it out for like about 10 seconds, and I feel like that was totally unnecessary because because we could tell that what was going to happen. You didn't need to make it so like over dramatic and over the top. And again as well, the reveal of Kiryu Sensei in a maid outfit is much more just like surprising and hilarious in the manga than it is in the anime, because like again like what happened with the crash, they really dragged it out in the anime. It's just they just go full on fan service with it, whereas here it's more like Ashima Senpai looks at Kiryu Sensei, she's like, what? And then it just immediately cuts to Kiryu Sensei in a maid outfit. I feel like that is way more hilarious and way more unexpected than what is actually what actually happens in the anime, because in the anime it's just like, just like going through all the various sections of the outfit before they get the reveal that Kiryu Sensei is actually in it. I feel like that was just totally just put in purely for fan service and nothing else. Another thing that they add in during the whole training up Kiryu Sensei to be a maid thing is when sorry guys, is when they add in Ashima Senpai saying to Kiryu Sensei, just think of you guys, your training partner, which is not in the manga. The best thing that comes close to it is this part right here, with Ashima Senpai saying, alright, you can practice your greetings on Yuga, Mafuyuna-chan. But again, I feel like the anime gets the upper hand here just because Ashima Senpai, I feel like, is much more trolling here, and it just makes it that much more hilarious when it's like, oh, you could just use him as your training partner, and it's just like, and she's probably just getting such a delight out of that, out of just like saying that stuff, because who would it be? Because it's like a teacher that used to be like, you're like the one that's in charge over you. Now all of a sudden you're the one in charge of them, so it's like she's obviously getting a joy out of this. So I feel like adding that little bit of calling Yuga Kiryu's training partner just added more to her trolling enjoyment of this situation that she's in right now. Another thing that they really get down is the bucket mop sequence, because in the episode it's just a case of like, she's like, oh, don't worry, Yuga, my private life is one thing, my work ethic is another, I can clean as well as anyone else. Like, that's all done. And she's like, just running off to do the job, and then all of a sudden just crash. That was hilarious, just to like witness that. And also as well, a lot of the reactions in the series weren't there in the anime, when you actually have the characters and the voices that are just added to them. That it's one thing to read a joke, but then to actually witness someone actually perform that out, that's two completely different things. And I feel like they nailed the comedic reactions in the anime themselves down to a T, even though they sometimes skip over things, or they just forget about certain aspects that are important later on in the series. And we'll get into that when we get into episode 13, because there's one point in episode 13 that was like, if only they included that point earlier in the series. But anyway, besides the point, the mop scene really great that they got that down. Spot the comic timing on that was absolutely perfect, and I have no problems with that. And to be honest, the last few episodes I don't have a problem with. It's just the fact that they just miss out on certain aspects that they miss out on certain chapters that would be beneficial for adapting now rather than waiting for later. And I feel like that's what they're doing. They're skipping over chapters because it's like, okay, well, we don't really have any chapters that focus on this particular character right now before the grand finale, which I'm going to spoil now. The grand finale is the fireworks like little mini arc that goes on. That's like the grand finale of series 1, and I feel like they were like thinking like, okay, well, we can either adapt these chapters, which are just like standalone chapters, or we can have like just an episode focusing on this character, and we have to like cut forward a little bit in time to actually make it fit into the context of the series that we're actually trying to do here. I feel like that's what they're doing, and hopefully they'll go back later on and adapt some of these chapters for series 2. And one last thing I want to say about the first half of episode 11 is that they get down drunk Kiri Sensei really well. She's more like laid back, more relaxed, and more like a cheerful little girl when she's in a drunken state. And the actress Lynn, who's the same actress as Gilda in Promised Neverland, she actually does a really good job of going for like that stern, cold, ironclad of like, I'm in charge, you're going to follow my rules, to more like, you go, you really do well for these skills. Takamoto, Ashima Senpai, Fumino, Ogata. I really like how she nailed that, just like that transition from being stone cold ironclad to like really drunken and really more laid back, relaxed approach. But anyway, that's the first half of episode 11, and obviously that's the end of Volume 4. Although there are some things that happen later on that I was like shocked, like really they actually included that, and we'll get into that when we get into it. But for now, let's move on to the next part of the episode, which obviously I have to use my laptop because none of the volumes are out. Because like I said before, they skip a lot of chapters, and this chapter that they adapted at the second half of episode 11 actually takes place after the fireworks display. I had to actually really look in and think like, where does this actually fit in? I had to actually really like skim through, and I finally found the chapter that it was actually adapted. I actually thought for a second, I thought like this was just an anime exclusive event that happened, but nope, this is an actual chapter. And there are 2 chapters that are totally left out before the fireworks display that I really want to actually talk about when we get to them. Those are chapters 36 and 37, because after this chapter in the manga, I believe we actually just go straight to the fireworks display. So that's what. So I'll get into those chapters at the end, which are chapters 36 and 37. Now, I've just confirmed to myself if that was actually the case, and yes, chapter 35 was actually adapted. I believe that's in episode 12. And then after that, we pretty much go into the fireworks display. But for now, chapter 41 is adapted, and it's chapters and it's other chapters that focus on Takamoto and Yuga's relationship before we actually get into the fireworks display. And I feel like the reason why they did that is because it's just like, it just helps it to be a bit more seamless in what they're trying to adapt. It's like, okay, we've got this episode that focuses on Takamoto exclusively, so we have to pick out the chapters that are in between the fireworks display before and after that could actually fit well into what we're establishing, and we do. So the only chapters that are completely avoided are chapters 36 and 37, and then we just get straight into the fireworks display little mini arc. But for now, that's for later. We're going to be focusing on chapter 41 now. Now this is going to be shorter than what came before, because again, like I said, chapter 41 was actually adapted really well. But there's one thing that I actually want to talk about, and it's the actual situation itself. Okay, so in the actual chapter, Kiria Sensei's like getting frantic because she's trying to search for an outfit to actually go to school to pick up documents. And one thing that I never understood, this has nothing to do with like what's the difference. It's just like a little observation that actually it's like, well, they could have actually done something. They could have actually done something here to actually change the situation, but not change the situation in the anime, but actually they could have actually thought about this a little bit better. It's like, why couldn't she ask someone to bring the documents to her apartment? Like, she could have easily just called Yuga up and be like, "Hey, Yuga, I have not got any outfits to wear. Can you go to the school to pick up these documents? I will give you a note to actually say I have given you permission to actually go and get these documents, and I will call up someone at this school to let them know, like, you're going to pick up these documents for me to bring them back to my apartment because because I basically can't come today because I'm sick." She could have just used the sick excuse and problem solved. She wouldn't have even been in this situation, but I honestly don't know. That's a legitimate question. Why didn't she actually just ask Yuga to, "Hey, can you go to the school to pick up these documents and bring them back to my apartment, please?" I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. This has nothing to do with, like, what's the difference or anything. It's just an observation that I thought of, like, why didn't she just get him to go to the school? But anyway, guys, that's what I wanted to bring up. And, because, again, like I said, when you're actually looking at these episodes, when you're actually looking at these events through certain lenses, you seem to pick up things much more than what you did the first time. And that's a thing that I actually picked up, is like, I never understood why she couldn't just ask you to go and pick up the documents from the school for her if it was that important. Now, one thing that was actually cut out of the episode was Naruyuki's thoughts when it comes to actually being in Kiryu Sensei's car, which is, it's so refreshing to ride in a car with a person at the wheel. Feels like I'm making a profit, and then it's just like, hold on tight, and then she just goes speeding off. Instead, it's just a case of like, hold on, and then she's speeding off. And I feel like I'm in two minds about that. On one hand, I can see why they didn't cut it. I can see why they cut it for comedic effects, but at the same time, it would be nice to actually have it in so that we can get like a perspective of, it's like, how it's all relaxed before the chaos starts actually happening. And she's just like this crazy frantic driver that just drives all over the place, and then he's like, "Please don't do that again." I don't know which is funnier. You guys let me know, because I can't decide on this on this point itself. Now, the last bit I want to talk about is the fact that the anime does not show Yuga getting the money, and I feel like that's from Kiryu Sensei when he buys the ice cream, and I feel like that's really an important point to actually have in the actual that they could have actually included, because it shows just like how insecure really Kiryu Sensei is about all of this situation between one of her students, and it's just like, look, just take the money. I am paying you back. Do not argue with me. And I feel like she just really. And I feel like that could have I feel like her crazy demeanour of actually just giving the money back shows how she's not really used to actually being alone with people, or alone with people outside of her family. But again, I don't really know if this was actually a good thing or a positive or a bad thing to actually leave out. And I mean, it's just a tiny little thing that really, at the end of the day, probably won't amount to anything. But at the same time, I feel like it's just like an important step of just like establishing like where the relationship is at the moment compared to where it is now in the manga. But again, that was just my little little observation that I found out, and that was episode 11. So again, not really much changes to actually go off here, and I feel like this, like I said, this anime has done a lot better of adapting than The Promised Neverland did. I mean, yes, they are cutting out stuff and they are leaving out chapters, but again, this is more of a slice of life series, and again, you can pick and choose what you want to adapt, and to see if it will actually fit into what you're actually trying to make. But for now, let's get on to episode 12, which we have a lot cut out here. Now, episode 12 starts off with Ogata and Ogata being cut out of the actual beginning of the episode, so that it only starts off with Naruyuki and Takamoto in the actual study hall to get together. So again, I don't know why. Well, I think I know why they actually cut out, because she's only in like this little opening bit where she's like, "Sorry, I have to go and do. Is it work? I believe she said it was work. Sorry, yeah, so it's like she's only there just to be like, oh, sorry, I have to go and help out work, so please excuse me. And it's just to actually build up the fact that they're actually alone in this space, in this like really tense atmosphere, because Naruyuki kind of suspects that Takamoto has a crush on him. So it's but I feel like, just cutting to the chase, it's just a bit more, much more hilarious in terms of just how tense these two actually are, and the fact that they're just alone together in an empty room. Now, in terms of chapter 35, this was actually one of the more well-adapted chapters because, again, I only had 3 points to actually bring up here. So, again, once again, what they choose to adapt, they adapt really well for the most part. I mean, once we get into chapters 42 and all those other chapters that are at the pool with Yuga and Takamoto, we'll get into that when we get into it, and you'll understand my frustrations about it as well. But anyway, like I said, in terms of chapter 35, I didn't find any major problems with how this chapter was actually adapted. It was adapted really well. They got down all the timing was spot on. It's just a few little tidbits that I just like noticed that are like, okay, this is actually different. I need to actually write this down. But in terms of the actual chapter itself, it works great. So anyway, the next point I want to talk about is the fact that Furuyashi has an extended conversation with Takamoto. In the actual episode, it's in the actual episode itself. Because after the episode, she goes, Yurika-chan, after your club practice tomorrow, and then it actually just cuts to Yuga and Takamoto on the actual benches while Furuyashi's actually behind them, whereas in the anime they stretch out the conversation a little bit too much, and I feel like it would have been just much more funnier if they actually just cut to the chase here. It's like, oh, Takamoto, after your practice tomorrow, and then we just don't hear the rest of that conversation and they're just there on the bench themselves. I feel like that would have been much more hilarious in the anime if they had actually kept to that. And last but not least, I have to talk about the actual bit at the end with Ogata and Saikujo, where it actually calls back to the mix-up that they actually got in the actual Furuyashi got, where she was actually thinking about, oh, who should I send this to? Oh my god, I sent it to Saikujo! And then she's like, and then Saikujo is actually blushing, and she actually goes up to Ogata and says, hey, it's important that there is no, hey, I don't know if there's any misunderstanding, but I don't have a crush on anyone, Ogata Misu, so can we be close friends? And Ogata's like, yeah, but I don't really get what you're going on about, when it's obvious that Saikujo has a crush on Ogata. It's like plain as day, obvious at this point that she has a crush on her. She's a lesbian, and it's cool, it's fine, I don't care. I find their pairing really adorable. Like Ogata x Saikujo for the win. But yeah, anyway, like I said, chapter 35, really good, and I kind of understand why they actually cut this bit out, because again, it's something that's not really the focus of the of the chapter, and it was just something that was put in there, sort of like a little roundup of what was actually going on. But since they actually cut Ogata out of this entire situation, I feel like it would have been like just weird just adding her in at this point in time. And I mean, I feel like they do actually have it in. It's just in like that little cutaway, like when it's like, okay, now we're halfway through the episode, that little barrier thing, that's sort of like signifying, okay, we're halfway through the episode, so now we're moving on to a new point of the actual story. We're moving on to the second half here. I feel like they did add that in, but again, it wasn't really focused on as much as it was in the manga. Now, chapter 42 is actually one that's really hit the most here, because it cuts out basically about half the chapter, in the sense that at the beginning we get Naruyuki's thoughts, which are like, well, here I am, and it has a flashback about Takamoto saying, about the tournament tomorrow, it's too embarrassing, you shouldn't come. Anyway, you guys have prep school, don't you? And we get Naruyuki going, Takamoto said that and all, but in the end, it was just too lonely if she didn't have at least one friend here to cheer you on. And it actually has a caption where it says, he was up all night to complete the supplementary material for today's lesson. Again, showing Naruyuki's and it has the bags on his eyes again. It shows Naoki's determination to actually make sure that his friends actually succeed in their studies, even though they've got other things going on. He's actually going to make sacrifices, and one of those sacrifices is sacrificing his sleep to make sure that not only they succeed at their endeavours, but also that he succeeds at his endeavour in order to get the recommendation. Wow. Get the recommendation, I'm putting that in quotations because, as you know, in the manga, he's kind of actually rejected that idea and he's moved on to something else. But anyway, no, it's just the fact that showing his determination right here, I feel like they could have just actually included that in to show, like, oh my god, this guy, give him a medal because the sacrifice that he's making for all these three is just phenomenal. Now, another thing that's cool is Naoki getting surprised when all the crowd is going, whoa, 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 and he realises that they're actually talking about Takamo as they go on to say, it's the Ebony and Ivory Little Mermaid. Ichi knows Academy's Takamoto Yuraka. And they're like, you can do it, and they're like, marry me, and he's like, you're kidding, Takamoto's the most popular, which is surprising for him because of how well he knows her outside of the swimming lessons. And this is even more surprising for him when a news reporter comes up to her and she's like, Miss Takamoto, you've achieved fantastic results at a great many swim mates, and despite only being in high school, you're seen as a potential candidate for the world's freestyle Olympic swimming team. Frankly speaking, what's your goal this time? And he's like panicking. He's like, "Wow, a magazine reporter is interviewing her here. Are you going to be okay, Takamoto?" She doesn't get so nervous that she loses it again, showing how the kind of person that Naoki is. Of now, he actually can notice their weaknesses, and one of Takamoto's weaknesses is actually being sort of like put under pressure in the way of like actually being set up for an interview without her knowing. And it's quite surprising for what happens next when she's actually going, oh dear, that's more than I deserve, but wow, if we're talking about my goals, with every stroke I'd like to be able to exert everything that I've achieved through all the time I've spent training. And this actually gets, now you can like, what? Holy crap, she's used to doing interviews. Is this really Sei Takamoto again, showing like how even though he's so focused on certain aspects of the girls themselves, he's kind of dim-witted when it comes to other aspects. And this is a perfect example of this, how she's very calm, very collected of herself, and she was able to answer the question with full proficiency. And but of course this all comes to a head when the interviewee tries to ask her a question which goes, I've heard you have a lot of male fans, give it straight to me, do you have a boyfriend? And then she's like, oh, what, really? I don't have a boyfriend, why are you asking me? So again, and then this gets Naoki relieved, like, it's really is the same Takamoto. So again, it's showing like how she has different sides to her and different layers to her, showing that even though she can answer questions when it comes to like what she wants to do with as a profession, when it comes to romance, she gets all flustered and panicky about it, and it's like, oh no, this is definitely the same Takamoto. And I know why they were actually skimming this down to like the bare bone, because they had so much more that they actually had to get through in this episode itself. But again, it's just nice to actually have these little moments that actually deviate from the actual structure of the episode, to actually get some time for the characters to grow and see like, okay, different sides to them and how they're going to handle this situation itself. But anyway, we get into the moment proper where he actually starts up with Takamoto on the diving board. So that's where the episode actually starts. So all that bit at the beginning, that was all car, and it just starts off, the episode actually just starts off with Takamoto on the diving board itself. Now, another part that's cool is actually the, I believe that this part was cool, it's the flashback between Naoki and Takamoto, where she's like, Naoki, it's totally absolutely 100% doesn't make any sense when she's actually trying to study herself, and he's like, that's an interesting way of putting it. You're usually so casual and open, but when you're in the water, it's just in just a moment you pull so far away. And then he's like getting absolutely nervous, like, wait, why am I so fascinated by this? Again, showing like how insecure he is about his own feelings for Takamoto at this point. And then another thing that we actually don't get is the scene in the waiting room right after. It's just like the whole swimming match before the actual incident happens, which gets them disqualified. Which is which again I feel like this moment could have actually been included because it's a great contrast to what happens later on when they actually do get disqualified, because they're all so cheery and like sort of like you can do it, which is where we have two of Takamoto's swimming friends going, Uruka, congratulations on your great showing in the individual 200-meter freestyle. And she's like, thanks. And they're like, man, you're seriously awesome, you know that. Before Takamoto goes on to say, but don't forget the medley relay that's coming up next. After all, it's the culmination of everything our club's worked for up until now. Let's work together and make this happen. As they all get into a huddle, like they're planning something out, and she's like, and they're like, Uruka, you might be moving on to the national team or whatever it is, but the rest of us third years will be retiring after this. This is the last time we'll be able to swim with everyone from the club. As the second year's representative, we're counting on you to take care of the third lap, Ikeda. And she's obviously really nervous about this, Ikeda, because again she's the one that actually causes them to be disqualified because she has a false start. And again, like I said, this could have been included in because it's a perfect contrast to the actual way actually it all goes downhill for them all, because they're all so upbeat, so uplifted, sort of like, right, we're retired, so this is the last time we can actually do this together, so let's go out with a bang and let's not make ourselves look foolish. And they're like, and they go on to say, Takamoto goes on to say, don't leave anything out, everything that we've learned, everything that we've trained for, let's give it all we've got. And they're like, go Ichinos, before we actually cut to the actual point in the actual race where they're actually at the relay, and Ikeda is like on the board and she's really nervous about this and she's trembling, and Takamoto's like, we've got a good pace going, it's almost time, don't overextend yourself. And she's like, okay. Again showing how much she actually has to improve herself, being like someone that is going to take over this club. And again, it shows the fact that because she was so nervous that she actually comes to the false start that actually makes her doubt herself in the end. And it's all getting so built up here, and they're like, and now you can like, this might just be it. They might really do it. And the other spectators like, it's looking really good for Ichinos. If the swimmer for the third lap can keep up this pace and hand it off to Takamoto, they might just win the medley too. And now you can like, right, and they're like, well, kiddo, you're getting really red up. Are you a fan of this? Are you a fan of this school too? And it's like, and then this all comes crashing down when the false start actually happens and they actually get disqualified. And then we sync back up to the actual episode itself. But again, I feel like if they actually included that little bit there of them in the waiting room, just getting themselves built up a bit, I feel like it would have been even more impactful when it actually did happen. It was impactful in the story, but to actually see them like just getting worked up and just getting built up and being so happy and so tricked that they're actually going to do this, it just made it so much more heartbreaking when they actually did get disqualified. Now, another thing that's clear is actually Narayuki being spotted in the hallway, because after the whole conversation in the hallway between the swimming team, it cuts to Narayuki and Takamoto basically out on the streets, whereas here, it actually has Takamoto's friends actually catching Narayuki and going, oh, what's this? Yuga-kun, you should have told us you were coming. Oh, I see. You were so worried that about Uruka, and he's like, it's not like that. And then Takamoto actually sees him, and she's like, Narayuki. And then they're obviously brushing with each other, and then they're like, Takamoto's like, what do you mean, hey? I thought I told you not to come, so why are you here? And he's like, sorry, but I couldn't help being so interested, and then everyone is just like abandoning them, and Takamoto's freaking out. It's like, oh, where did everyone go? Aren't you being too obvious here? And then we see the news reporter actually coming in, actually trying to actually get some answers about what actually happened at the relay today. And how it was quite a shame, and she's like, would you mind giving me the pleasure of interviewing about it? And then she goes on to say, so is that your boyfriend? And she's like I said, he's not my boyfriend. And they're like, oh, isn't that Takamoto? Can you give me an autograph? And then obviously she's getting like really flustered about this, and about everyone just like crowding around her, because again, she's very nervous herself, Takamoto, about handling big large scale groups. So it's kind of a it's kind of a problem for her that she will have to actually overcome. And of course, Naoyuki has to actually bail her out of this situation. Then we sort of like sync back up to the rest of the episode. Obviously, say for a moment where they're holding hands, and he's like, "My bad, I didn't mean that," and she's like, "It's really okay. I really didn't mind any of that." So that's pretty much everything to do with chapter 42. And again, I feel like this would have been one of those chapters that would have benefited if just being adapted all the way through, because the stuff that they cut out actually is a reflection on Takamoto herself, about how she still has a lot to overcome herself and a lot of problems that Ichika actually needs to overcome herself. Like, she actually has confidence issues herself, and Takamoto has confidence issues, and it's great parallel that they both need to overcome themselves if they want to actually succeed in life. But again, we'll move on to the next chapter because there's quite an amount cut out of that one as well. Now, the main thing that I want to talk about in this point of the episode is the fact that there's no mention of Takamoto being like a swimming advisor, which obviously makes sense of why they actually can be in the school. And there's no like back and forth about them going on with Naoyuki going, hold on a second, even if you got permission, it isn't coming back here in the middle of the night during school vacation when no one is around, kind of grey area. And Takamoto's like, you think so? And she's like, dude! Again, I just love these like little interactions that are in the manga, but for some reason not adding them into the anime. And the fact that they have that they don't mention that Takamoto is an advisor to the swimming team actually makes it even more confusing of like how they're actually able to get into the school itself. But anyway, one thing that I actually do want to talk about here is that there's no reminiscent of the old stories of them being in middle school when they're actually climbing the stairs, which is that part right there. Yeah, I managed to get the angle at last. It's that part right there when they're climbing the stairs and they're like, "Oh yeah, you mean that time that Ona Sensei wig came off during morning assembly? I remember that. Oh, and did you know this? When he was making his high school debut, the basketball club's Nabichi said that he was aiming to be an officially Kaiban, and they go on to say, "Wow, really? I can't picture that." So again, that's something that I really like about this, and the fact that it's showing just how far they've actually come in their relationship, how they've been through middle school together, and now they're in high school together, going through to the end. Because that actually reminds me of quite a few people that I knew, like when I was in primary school or elementary school. I knew a lot of people who went to the same high school and then to the same college, which is high school in the UK. I knew a lot of people. I knew one person that actually went through all of primary, high school, and college, that went to the same college as me. I've not seen them in a few years' time, but it would be nice to actually see them there again and catch up on old times. It's kind of like what's happening here with Naoyuki and Takamoto. And again, pretty much. Actually, this is going off a bit, but pretty much the girl that I went to high school with, she pretty much was like Takamoto in herself, very cheery, very, very bubbly person, and she was very athletic. That was kind of her thing. She was like one of the most athletic people in the school itself, and and to actually go through my whole school life with her, even though we didn't really interact much after primary school, it would still be kind of nice to actually have moments like this where it's like, do you remember the time that this happened and this happened and this happened? And I would really like to meet her again and just actually have a conversation with her, but we're on different paths now, and that's kind of nature of life. It's that the friends that you have in high school may not actually be the friends that you have in your adult life, and that's just a reality that you have to live with. But it would be nice to actually meet them again and catch up on old times and everything. But what can you do? But anyway, that's what I love about this, and the fact that it's nothing that it doesn't have anything to do with like the overall plot of the episode, and I feel like that's why they cut it out. But again, it would be nice to actually just have that little bit in there to actually just get a sense of nostalgia for these two characters and how far they've come in their relationship. Now in the episode, this is actually cut out where Takamoto is actually going into a flashback about how when she first caught her eyes on Naoyuki, And she goes on to say, ever since that day, by the time I noticed it, I was already always looking for him out of the corner of my eye. I practiced seriously in the front of the mirror at home. I wanted to sound natural where I called him by his given name, and she's like, "Hi, Naoyuki." Not quite. "Hey there, Naoyuki," and she's trying to actually find the right way to actually go about it. And her mum's coming in, and it's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And then we get more of the flashback with her two friends that were on a swimming team with her, where. No, they are on the swimming team with her, or they're just her regular best friends that she's with. And she's like, and they're like, "Ichino's Academy, didn't you say you passed the entrance for Futasubiya High?" And then she's like, yeah, but you know, I had a little change of heart, kind of something along those lines." And then they actually see her, like, at the corner, there's actually, Naoyuki's actually behind her talking to, Kobayashi, the guy with the blonde hair. I believe that's what his name is. And they see her just like looking off to the side of her, and they're like, "Oh, we see what's going on here." And they're like, "Hey, Ichino's works for me. Their swimming club's strong after all. Well, it's kind of far from my place, but that's how it goes, right?" And she actually thinks that they're actually coming for her, which in the sense that they actually are kind of coming for her, but in the sense that they can actually see, like, "Oh, I get it. It's because of Naoyuki. So okay, we're gonna follow you to make sure that you get with him in the end." And another thing that's actually cool is this guy right here, the actual janitor guard guy of the actual school. That he's actually cut out of the episode, and I feel like they could have actually included him here to show, like, okay, even though they can kind of get away with being a grey area, the fact that they have to be secretive around someone shows that they're not really supposed to be there. But again, that probably would have wound up just taking a little bit of screen time away from what's actually important, which is the development of the relationship between Takamoto and Naoyuki, because it's a very important step that happens in this episode and in this chapter itself as well. Now, one thing that I really liked about all of this, about what was actually added to the anime, was actually we got more of the flashback of Takamoto and Naoyuki at the pool when they were back, where I believe they were they were back in middle school, and they were talking about, like, what the future plans were. We got a lot more of the flashback of Naoyuki basically inspiring her and trying to carry on, and that's like anime filler that's added in to actually build on points that were actually brought up in the manga, and I like that about what was actually done here. But at the same time, it actually made it so that it actually had to cut out the part where Naoyuki is thinking about his father, and how when he passed away, he didn't really know what was going to happen to them. And his family, but he was the oldest son, and he was hell-bent on studying and doing things right, and his grades weren't improving like he thought they were, and he was pretty discouraged. But then when he saw all the news of Takamoto working so hard, and that gave him the courage to think that maybe he should give it another chance as well. So really, he's the one that should be thanking her for what he did for her. So again, I really hate the fact that they actually cut that out, because again, it shows like a mirror, like parallel, sort of like they help each other just as much as they help the other. And I feel like if they actually included that in the actual episode itself, it would have actually been a really much more powerful and poignant moment between the two, showing like they've all both had their problems, but through talking to each other and through understanding each other, they kind of I kind of looking at each other as sort of like an inspiration for each other. It kind of inspired them to like continually being better and continually trying on. So I hate the fact that they cut out the actual situation with the father passing away, but at the same time, I actually like that they actually added more to the flashback between Naoyuki and Takamoto, and it wasn't just one panel. So it's kind of like pick your poison. You either want more of the reminiscing about the father, or more about reminiscing about the relationship between Takamoto and Naoyuki at the pool. And again, it shows like Takamoto, like, despite being like really energetic and over the top at times, she can understand when when she's actually done something that may actually offend the other person. Like right here, when she's actually holding Naruyuki's hand, and she's like, "I'm sorry, I didn't think I'd make you remember something so painful. I made you feel terrible, didn't I? I'm so sorry." And he's like, "No, I didn't. I'm sorry, I didn't mean things to get so dark." And again, I love little moments like that, because again, it shows just where the relationship has actually come since the beginning of the series, and since even before the beginning of the series, how they can actually comfort each other and actually find confidence in each other at this point without being so awkward at times. I mean, they're still awkward, but in terms of being awkward, like to the point that they can't actually speak to each other. So again, that was episode 12, an episode that had a lot of really good moments, but at the same time, there was a lot of moments that were actually cut that I felt like, oh, why didn't they include that? Why didn't they include those moments? But everybody is so perfect. But again, they seem to like be climbing in to 3 very hefty dialogue-centric episodes that just establish the characters and just build up their relationships. And I feel like they really didn't actually need to include. They really didn't actually need to include. They could have just left the chapter out where Furuhashi helped out Naruyuki and Takamoto at the park, and they could have just had these episodes with them at the pool. I don't know. I don't know what. I really don't know what they could have done to actually improve on it. But again, it wasn't a bad episode, just like those major points that actually reflect on the relationship between Takamoto and Naruyuki that just made it so much more frustrating. But again, not as frustrating as what I did with The Promised Neverland. And hopefully, when I actually have to go and look at Dr. Stone, because we're going to be doing a Dr. Stone video today as well, hopefully that will be so much more easy to get through. But anyway, guys, let's move on to the final episode, episode 13. Now, like I said before, there have been times where they've actually gone back and actually adapted moments from previous chapters that I actually skipped over, and this is one of them. Chapter 23, when they actually skipped over that one, which was the pajama party, which I talked about in a previous episode. So I'm not going to talk about that in depth in this one, like what the differences were, because really it's only there to be like the prelude to the actual episode itself. So there's really not much point talking about it all too much, but. It cuts out the moment of Takamoto asking Sakajo into her PJs, because again, when she's actually at the at Ogata's house itself, she's already in her PJs, and the line makes no sense of Sakajo saying, where is it? Here, this one here. On the other hand, pajamas are pretty awesome. The line doesn't make any sense when she's already in her PJs itself, and it also cuts out Naruyuki. So again, there's really no point in talking about the actual chapter itself, and I've already talked about it in a previous episode in depth. But again, it adds a little bit more of Sakajo complimenting Yuga and showing how much he means to the other girls, which of course obviously starts to make them blush, because again, Sakajo is one of the people who actually can tell what the relationship is between each of the characters, and sort of like the mediator between them as well, which is why she's one of the more important secondary characters to the series itself. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say on on chapter 23. Like I said, it was a short one, but again, not really much point to talk about it, since it was only there for like about a minute and a half as well. So it's sort of like how much length it took me to talk about it in this particular moment. Now again, episode 13 really adapted really well. It did a great job of the whole fireworks little mini arc that was going on, or the fireworks festival mini arc that they had going on. So it was a great finale to the whole series, although there were a couple of points that I want to talk about. But first off, something that I actually want to talk about is that in the actual festival itself, they had masks that were reminiscent of Frieza, Krillin, Android 17, Luffy, Asta or Soma. Like the Asta and Soma one, it's like I couldn't really tell because it kind of looked like Asta from Black Clover, or it kind of sort of looked like Soma from Food Wars. I wasn't entirely sure about that, but yeah, I just found that like a little like nod to those actual series that they actually put in the episode. If you watch the episode, you'll know what I'm talking about when they have that mask display on, and you see like many of the masks of the various anime protagonists, of the various Shonen Jump protagonists that were there. I guarantee that you guys will see it now that I've actually brought it out. And I mean, well, Frieza's not really, Frieza and Android 17 are not really protagonists. They're more like antagonists to the actual group itself at certain points in the series. But anyway, the one thing that they actually do here is that they get introduced to Yuga's family at the fireworks festival, like Furuyashi and Takumo actually get introduced to the family, and this would be fine and dandy if they actually added of Crowd Chapter 3. This was actually the moment I was talking about, because it's like the fact that they actually had to do this here, it's just like makes it more frustrating that we're not going to get Chapter 3 at all. We're not going to get Chapter 3 at all, and that was one of my favourite chapters, and I'm really angry that they actually cut that chapter out. Sorry guys, I'm sorry, I just had to get that vented rage out. But aside from that, that's literally all I wrote down when I was taking my notes on the actual episode itself. Those were pretty much all I talked about, and as well as Furuyashi talking about being in the mountains, which makes more sense about why they couldn't actually just get home. She talks about being in the mountains, but again, they were in a town or something. It's like, I don't know why I wrote that note down. Anyway, guys, but anyway, that was episode 13. Again, another short one. It was like nothing really to actually comment on, except that moment where we got introduced to Yuga's family, which they could have just included at the point I need to be included at. But anyway, guys, now that I've got those out of the way, I'm going to talk about chapters 36 and 37, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on the actual anime itself. Okay, guys, so what I've decided to do is leave these chapters until later on when I'm probably talking about the OVA. I'll probably get back into them and talk more about these chapters then, or I actually might leave them, because these chapters might actually be the chapters that actually start off season 2. So I'll wait until that point and see what actually happens, rather than actually talking about it now, because I don't want to have a mistake when I talk about a chapter like chapter 23, and then immediately I have to like, oh okay, now that they've adapted it, I've got to talk about it in the actual episode itself. So anyway, guys, that's what I'm going to do. And the standalone chapters, they focus on Risu being at home, and everyone coming in and actually trying to comfort Naruyuki most of all, and chapter 37 is mostly about Naruyuki with Furuyashi, and I feel like that these chapters would be great to actually start off season 2. Like, these chapters would be great to actually bring back and see like, okay, these are the problems that they're going to have to overcome, and if they're not in season 2, I will definitely talk about them then. I will definitely talk about them in the first episode of season 2, if these are actually, even if these are not adapted, or possibly in the OVA. But anyway, guys, so the anime of We Never Learn, it was better than The Promised Neverland. It was adapted better than The Promised Neverland, but there was still a few bits in there, a few bits that were being cut here and there and being left out. And again, I really wish that they would have added that in. But again, I understand that this is a different genre than Promised Neverland. It's not more linear, and they can pick and choose whatever they want at times. But anyway, guys, now that we've got We Never Learn out of the way, we'll be moving on to Stone, and of course I'm doing The Promised Neverland review today, which is another reason why I don't really want to tie myself down with talking about chapters 36 and 37. I just want to get on to the other things at this point, and I know that's kind of lazy on my part as well, but again, I don't want to like just focus on things that are not really that relevant at this moment in time, and I feel like they will actually be relevant later on as we get further along in the series. And again, we've got series 2 to look forward to, so maybe these chapters 36 and 37 will actually be the ones that actually open the series. I don't know, but anyway, guys, that was it. That was We Never Learn What's the difference, anime? Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this. What you thought of these 3 episodes, episodes 11, 12, 13. Comment, like, subscribe, all that jazz. And this will be Lush Luke signing off. And in a bit, we will be getting on to the Promised Neverland. So see you in a bit, guys.